Hello and Happy New Year. I'm going to do a little tutorial on how I manage materials in Houdini on some larger scenes, and it's worked really well for me, so I want to share it with you guys. Coming from Maya or 3ds Max, the way you probably are more used to doing materials if you came from those programs like I did is you would kind of just do your models and then later on just open up the Hypershade or material editor and just drag different materials to your different objects. And that works okay for simple things, and Houdini you could kind of do that as well, but I'll show you a more complex way to do it that I think is just a lot better when you're managing bigger scenes later. So hopefully you could find it useful. So I just created a geometry node and I just put some random things like a screws, a box, and we could just add some more. So this is where you would just be doing your modeling, assembling your scene, doing things like that. And what I like to do is start thinking about kind of the selection sets, if you will, about your materials at this stage, so that later you don't have to do it, and that'll be very useful throughout your production. So what I do is every time I know, as I work, every time I know that something needs to different material, I'll just create a group node, if I spell it correctly, like that. And then I would always name it something like the word mat in front of it, and just type screws. And just keep in mind that's the name of the node. You also have to name the group actual here. And a lot of times I will just color it a unique color, so I know those are what's going to kind of control the materials. So I got all my objects, and as I model, if I made more screws, I would just copy that, plug more screws into that, plug that into the merge node, and then your selections are set for later. So you don't have to do the drag and drop trick later. It will already be kind of set for you. But right now, we'll use the grid as well. We're going to call this ground. And just use a lot of copy pastes. It goes really quick after you've been doing this for a while on a project, and it becomes a lot better than just merging or than just dragging things on. So just bear with me while I do this. Call this box 1. And you'll notice in Houdini, like if I copy this, for example, this will add a 1 to the end of screws, but the actual material or group name is not going to increment to 1, which is what you want, because you want that to be using the same material later. And we'll just make this box 2. Just make sure you always have the group name named correctly. And that'll be my kind of saved selection sets that will be used later. So out here, if I'm finished modeling, I will add a null and call it out scene, let's call it. And this will be a similar workflow to what's used in like VFX pipelines, like USD workflows, things like that. But this is kind of a simplified version to use for your more personal project or indie projects. If you work at a studio, they'll have their own system and you'll just have to conform to that, but it'll be somewhat similar to this, I would imagine. So out here, we just go out here and I'll create a new geo node here and call it scene material. And in here, we're going to create an object merge node. And a lot of times I will have 2 windows for my node trees, one on a separate monitor, and that just lets you drag things into the names to be a lot quicker, but here we're just going to browse for it. And I'm going to browse these the out node that we have. So now here I could just turn this off, the visibility off back here, because we only need 1 of these to be on. And here is where I will do all my materials. So I'll create a material network. This is where the materials will exist. This is kind of your material editor or your Hypershade. And to assign the materials, we will go down this chain. And to do that, I'll create a material node And I will only use one per material because I like to color these, I like to visualize these that way. You could add more here. See, I could add two number of materials, 3, 4, but personally I don't like that. For me, it visually doesn't vibe. I prefer just to do it here. So again, what we want to do is just go back here, go back to our working scene, and just use a lot of copy paste, so the way you won't screw up. And then go back again, and you could create hotkeys as well. If in here I could press Control 1, and then I go back up, and in my working scene I could press Control 2. So now if I press 1 and 2, it switches back between the two. So I could just copy paste really fast. So I'll try to do this as quick as possible. So let's call this Matte Screws. And here we'll do group Matte Screws, and then here is where we browse for the materials. So I'm going to make one material to begin with. So I'm using Redshift, but it'll be the same without it, or any other render you have. And I'm just going to use standard materials in here. A lot of times I will use a material builder. This is just a group where inside here you have your material. Sorry, I should do a Redshift material builder. Oops. Just like that. And inside here, it's the same thing. This is our material, and if you have a big procedural material for a lot of nodes, this is just a way to organize it. But for now, I won't get into that. Let's just keep it a standard material. And this has the same name as the screws. So I could also Control 3 to set my location hotkey. So I now have 2 for my working folder, 1 for my materials, and 3 inside my materials. So here I will just copy a few of these like so, and then I could just use my hotkeys and just get all these names correct. So, and I know my other one is box 2, so I'll name that. So that's all my materials. And I also like to color these to have like a representation of what they're assigned to. Like ground, I'll do like a dirt color. These, let's do them purple, and screws can be a gray color. And let's just color these a little bit as well. But yeah, that's how I'll set these up. And then here, it seems like a lot of work at first, but I assure you it will be worth it. So here we're just going to pick the screws, and you'll notice by default it adds the entire path, which you don't need all that. You could just replace the beginning part of that with dot dot. But what that means is it will look inside its own node, and then it'll go to MatNet1 and then Matte Screws. And you can see that's there. So now we just copy these, and just make sure these are connected when you copy. And a little trick to organize these is if you select them all, hold A and drag up, it will kind of like help organize them in. So now we do the same what we did in the materials. They need all the same names to be connected. And that includes the names inside here, because this is what group it's looking at and what material to assign to. For example, this outside name doesn't matter, but you want to change it so you don't get screwed up later. So now we're going to do matte ground. So I'm going to copy that, and then here we're going to paste matte ground, and matte ground in here as well, like so. And you can see the color already applied. So now we're going to go to matte box 1, matte box 1, matte box 1, box 1, matte box 2, matte box 2, and matte box 2. And that is your materials applied. And the reason this is really good is because, for one, you always have a group that's based on what materials applied. So later, if I have to make some kind of mask or something, I could just add a split node here, for example, and I could split out another out node that I'll use for something else. For example, glass would be one that would be used for a lot of different things. And here I could pick whichever group I want to kind of like split out. And I don't have any glass here, but I'll just show you screws. And if you're very smart about this, you could also, and your naming is well placed, notice how both of these are matte box, right? So if you could use like matte box and an asterisk to kind of select both of these materials that will be allowed to be split out, like so. And throughout your production, just being able to keep this managed will be really good. Just to show you like one of my bigger projects, this one here, and that's kind of the setup I have here. Now, it's still a work in progress. I'm cleaning this up as we go. But as you can see, I have multiple things, kind of windshield, the props, housing, details all being merged in. That's getting thread through this kind of like gauntlet of materials being applied. And then some things get split out, like the glass, which I showed earlier. And I try to color the materials, which this all makes sense to me because I've been working on the project for a while. And if you're sharing a project with people, you'll just make sure you never leave it uncleaned so that they're able to see what you did. But this is why I like the separate materials. Instead of using one node for many, it's like you could color them. You could put these kind of backdrops in to split up the different sections. And it has really worked well for me, so I really wanted to share with you guys and let me know what you think about this method. Thank you and take care.